Very nice. Hello everyone, welcome back to the new news. My name is Paul and thank you for joining us today. We have a lot of stuff that's been going on, and there's a lot of stuff going on throughout the world. I mean, especially when it comes to Ukraine, of course, but there's a plenty of stuff coming out of Russia, most of which is extremely frustrating. But we have a lot of stuff that's been happening. There's a lot of stuff regarding natural disasters. There's a lot of stuff in support of Ukraine. There's a lot of stuff that the Russians are doing today. So we have a lot of stuff to go through, and unfortunately, a lot of this stuff just isn't great news. I mean, it's not happy news, right? We do find happy stuff. In fact, anything in purple on this map is actually something, kind of cool, kind of neat, kind of kind of nice. A little break from the death and despair that is most of the news throughout the world. But luckily, we can hopefully get more purple dots here on the map with your support. And you guys have been able to build this into an awesome community. You guys have been able to continue not just to support us, but if you check out in the description, there's a ton of organizations down there in the description below. Please check them all out. Don't just focus on Ukraine, please, but also check out the other locations as well. We're constantly looking for more. In fact, we have some news that we might be able to help more here if we can find some. With some of the disasters that happened today. So we want to help people all over the world. And unfortunately, when you're talking about places like Africa, or when you're talking about places like the Middle East or South America, they get overlooked because of the war ongoing in Ukraine, especially Africa, where 90% of the country of Somalia is actually dry. In the Horn of Africa, specifically Ethiopia and Somalia, so there's a major ongoing drought there, and the majority of people who are going to be affected by this, according to the United Nations, is children under the age of 5, because they have no way to literally beg, borrow, or steal. And unfortunately, because of the ongoing war in Ukraine, most of the rations had to be cut by at least half. So that's kind of the situation there, and with other humanitarian missions ongoing all over the world. And those stocks are not getting replenished with Ukrainian grain because of the limited ability to export it at this point, which luckily they are working on, but unfortunately it may be a little too little too late. But luckily we can give back and we can help these people. So once again, please check out the description below. If you have any more, our Discord description is also listed below. Please go onto our Discord and let a staff member know. We will go through and we will start getting that stuff vetted. We're currently in the process of vetting several right now, and we're always looking for more. We're never going to be doing super chats or anything on this channel. We're not here for the money. We're just here to deliver the news in the way that we feel is right, and also we also want to help people. So that's the whole idea of this project, and that's what we want to continue to do going forward. So I have a full-time job. I'm not looking for the money. So that's currently what's happening here. So appreciate your ongoing support for us and those organizations, and we're going to dive right here into the news, starting with what's going on in Ukraine. Unfortunately, it's not a lot of good news. So the first thing that we see here is knowledge is power. This is something that has been reiterated throughout history, is that knowledge is indeed power. In fact, it's one of the reasons why Germany burned books, is knowledge is power. It was a very big metaphor with that. And we can see that here. So since the beginning of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine, Russian troops have destroyed 209 and have damaged 1,819 educational establishments in Ukraine. And that's coming from Serhiy Shkarlet, who is the Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine. And who does a doctor call for when they need help? Well, unfortunately, that is the cost of some of this war. As we've seen that Russian forces have targeted many schools throughout, or many, not just schools, they have targeted those, but hospitals and medical facilities throughout Ukraine. And since the beginning of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine, Russian aggressors have killed 12 civil health care workers in Ukraine. And that's coming from Viktor Leshko, Minister of the Healthcare of Ukraine. We jump over here. We immediately jump from there into the Donbass, where we actually are over here just south of the Kharkiv Oblast. And this is where you see the battle continues across the river. So really, Russian forces and Ukrainian forces are separated by the Seversky Donets River. And that is kind of what we're seeing here. Russian forces have made some gains, and we're seeing that here as well. We did have to change the map to really reflect that today. But Ukrainian artillery actually hit Russian vehicles near Borodichny. Once again, I'm sorry for my pronunciation. I barely speak English, let alone Ukrainian and Russian. So I apologize on that end, but we can take a look at the video here. Of course, this is going to have music attached to it. But so this was geolocated. We actually got it geolocated to the actual location here on the map. But you can see that Ukrainian artillery pounding that part of the river right there along the riverfront. And as you see, there's going to start to be some vehicles that start cooking off pretty quickly. Now, we have seen Ukraine use pretty effective fires, indirect fires here. So we continue to see that even now. And you can start to see these more military-laden vehicles that those... See if I can back up and catch it here. Hit play. As you saw those 2 white dots flying out from there, those were tracer rounds that were cooking off. And once, I also apologize if we're getting some sound effects with this. So there's currently fireworks ongoing in my area because it's that time of year for where I live. And these people have absolutely no consideration whatsoever. So I apologize if you're overhearing that on the mic. It shouldn't be too bad, though, unless they start shooting them real close. Over here, we come into Lysychansk. So most of the world today is celebrating Father's Day. And if you're a father, happy Father's Day. Unfortunately, though, in Ukraine, they really don't have any way to celebrate. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Because many Ukrainian fathers have either already been killed or they are currently at the front and fighting. And if they're not there, then they're watching their own children be killed because of Russian attacks, including this father. This picture is from today out of Lysychansk. Lysychansk has been under pretty much constant bombardment for about the last week or so now at this point. And it's getting pretty intense there. A lot of infrastructure destroyed and a lot of civilian casualties at this point. Pillaging is a war crime. I cannot emphasize, you cannot pillage, you cannot take things, you cannot loot things. And this is coming from Sergei Haida, who's the head of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration, and he has stated, since the beginning of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine, Russian occupiers have exported 10,000 tons of grain and 15,000 tons of sunflower from the temporarily occupied territories of the Luhansk region. We're going to circle back to that too. But pretty substantial loss in agricultural exports for the Luhansk region and for Ukraine. As you jump down here, we can see that Ukrainian forces are conducting shoot and scoots. Now, this is a maneuver that most forces actually learn how to do. This is something that artillery for the United States, artillery and mortars, are trained to do here in the U.S. A shoot and scoot means you get to location, you set up your guns, you set up your gun line, you sight everything in, open, FTC, gets to call for fire, you open fire on the target, you load everything back up and head out. And that's what we're seeing here. So even though that Russian artillery is outnumbering them and outgunning them by about tenfold, they are doing this. They're doing this shoot and scoot method in order to prevent counter battery fire from really getting honed in on their position. So they'll fire, displace, set up, fire, displace, set up. So they're constantly moving in order, because counter battery fire, they're going to fire back at wherever the rounds came from. So if you're not where the rounds came, if you're not from where you shot at, theoretically the rounds shouldn't land near you, and that's what we're seeing here. So makes it very difficult for Russian forces to target them, and the contested airspace over Ukraine makes it very dangerous for air assets to attempt to target them as well. You can take a look here and watch this. So they fired a couple rounds, and they're like, all right, it's time to go, guys, and loaded everything up and got out of Dodge. So, and that's pretty much what you're going to be seeing from Ukrainian artillery, too. Unlike Russian artillery and the artillery within the LPR and DPR, they're not really going to be setting up anything, into a fixed position. They're going to be constantly on the move because it minimizes their losses and their chances of receiving counter battery fire. While it does require more logistically because you have to continue making sure your vehicle is fueled and on the move, and everyone's living out the back of that out the back of the Ural, while not very comfortable, it keeps you alive, and I'd much rather be uncomfortable than dead. As you jump over here, we can see what life is like under shelling. This is, yeah. So this is them in a trench line. This is Ukrainian troops. They're in a dugout within a trench line. And just similar to World War I, we're seeing it here, Ukrainian troops. And they're currently all huddled together. There's another barrage of Russian artillery coming in. So let's take a look.
Отойди, да. Отойди, да.
So not my ideal day at work. Definitely not. But that is what it's like to be a Ukrainian soldier in the trench. I mean, that's what's happening. That's what's going on. I mean, it's not super great living conditions, and two, you're constantly being bombarded by Russian forces, and it's basically World War I style trench warfare all over again, because modern wars like this haven't been fought before. I mean, think about the last modern war. Think about the last large-scale two industrial powers going and putting their entire economies behind a war effort and killing each other. It hasn't happened really since World War II. Think about it. If you look at Vietnam, it was asymmetric warfare. If you look at Desert Storm or Iraq may have had the 7th largest army in the world. It doesn't mean that they were any good at being an army. And they got steamrolled. It was very fast-paced, shock and awe, blitzkrieg styled. Because the blitzkrieg, kind of gets used incorrectly, and I probably am too. But it's very fast-paced, highly kinetic maneuver warfare. It's not, that kind of, force on force, that kind of near peer fighting hasn't occurred since World War II. And technology has come such a long way. It's come such a long way that weapons have become so deadly, and we've gotten so good at killing each other that you have to sit in a defensive position. You have to dig a trench. This is the exact same reasoning behind why World War I was so deadly and why trench warfare developed there, because of the machine gun. It's not the 19th century anymore in World War I. It's not big rank-and-file maneuvers of your infantry who are wearing these brightly colored clothes on the front lines, so you can identify who they are. It's not line infantry going up against each other and cavalry, right? Attacking and harassing your enemy's flanks. No. It's machine gun lines and bunkers and gas and lots and an absurd amount of artillery. And it kills people in unfathomable numbers. The Battle of the Somme, the first day of the Battle of the Somme, over 100,000 casualties for the British. And that's what you're seeing here. Weapons have advanced so far since the last major global conflict against near-peer nations. Two nations that are rather similar in their arms, military capabilities, that now everyone needs to start taking notes militarily, because there is such a big difference. This is a huge learning point in how war should be fought in the 21st century. This is the first major war of the 21st century. Really. The first major conflict that wasn't fighting, guerrilla fighters in some far-off land that no one really cared about after a while. And that's the true fact. You jump down here towards Mariupol. Mass exhumation is still occurring in Mariupol. We talked about this. They're basically desecrating the graves of people at this point. So not only are they having to go through and dig out the rubble, but they have been ordered to forcefully remove those that have already been buried, because the residents of Mariupol buried their family members and their friends and relatives in city parks, in medians, in gardens, in any place they could. They buried them there, and they're exhuming these grave sites. And we've talked about this before when it first happened, and the first report said, hey, yeah, the occupied government is saying that we're going to forcefully exhume all of these. And that was a rumor. Now we have the video evidence to back it too. Let's take a look.
Друзья, всем привет! Вот вы видите, происходит перезахоронение, эксгумация, могилы раскапывают.
This is a children's park. Look, there's a seesaw right there. Like, if that doesn't tell you the plight that these people went through, I don't know what could. And if them exhuming these doesn't tell you the mentality of the Russians, because they're either gonna send them to the dumpster because they're in the dump because they are so decomposed at this point, which is what we know they're doing, or they're gonna put them in mass graves. No name, just a number. That is what's going to happen. And once again, we circle back to pillaging as a war crime. So we've seen the Russian Duma on here, and we've actually seen the statements that they actually had taken down, but luckily our researcher had the forethought to archive them. But this right here is a massive convoy of grain vehicles, and all of this is grain that's being taken from the occupied regions of Ukraine and taken to Crimea and then exported back to the rest of Russia. So this is pillaging on a mass, systematic scale. This isn't, bad eggs in the Russian army, right? This isn't just the fact that the Russian army is terribly disciplined and untrained and whatever else. This is systematic. You cannot look at the logistics of the Russian military. The Russian military can't hardly fight a war because their logistics are so screwed up. Okay? So, but they have the ability to logistically support a large-scale pillaging of a nation. Not only are the Russians using global famine, as a weapon of war, they're now pillaging from the local grain supplies of other people, of a people that they are having a pretty case of, I would say at the bare minimum, ethnic cleansing at this point, let alone genocide. And now it's basically going to be a holodomor within the occupied regions. And so let's take a look.
выехали с Чонгара, повернули и едем. Вот так вот вывозят зерно с Херсонской области. Это таможня со стороны Чонгара. Сколько километров ты засек?
Сейчас я скажу, я знаю, до Нового Труда от Чонгарского поворота 8. А тут осталось сейчас за секунду. 28 до Нового Труда.
Как-то так.
1.3 kilometers long is what it's being reported as. And that's near Shangar in the Kherson Oblast, which is right down here by Crimea. And we've seen where in Siberia they were talking about, oh, well, let's take their actually is Krasnoyarsk, and their government said, well, we're gonna take the grain supplies from occupied territories in the LPR and the DPR, and then we're also gonna end up doing the same with the Kherson Oblast. At Spif in St. Petersburg, Vladimir Putin talked about how they're not only going to be, despite the sanctions, not only are they going to be able to produce enough grain for their own country and their own self-preservation in agriculture, but they're also going to be exporting an immense quantity of grain to the rest of the world. Why? Well, because they're not growing it themselves. In fact, the Russians are actually losing agricultural land every single year because of the environment. They're losing agricultural land every single year inside of Russia because of climate change. That's happening globally, but this is, they already have issues with their agriculture. This is very well known. In fact, Siberia, everyone really east of Moscow, really basically has a ton of agricultural issues, especially when you start getting out into the Far East. And it's so bad that the Russian government can't really support them all that well, which is why these regions are a lot poorer anyway, because what are you going to grow in the Siberian tundra? Not usually a whole lot. It's why it's the Siberian tundra. You know what they are going to do, though? They're going to enlist in the military. And then they're going to get a constant paycheck and a pension. And then they're also going to get fed every day and clothed and have a bed every day. So that's why you're never seeing recruitment campaigns around Moscow or anything. No, you're seeing it down by Grozny, or you're seeing it in Dagestan, or you're seeing it in Siberia, or you're seeing it in the Far East, or literally anywhere but Moscow and St. Petersburg, because Moscow and St. Petersburg, and probably Smolensk too, would all raise hell if they did. It would be over. So that's currently the ongoing situation there, and it's very frustrating. It's extremely, the situation in Ukraine is extremely frustrating, to say the least. But that actually wraps it up for Inside Ukraine. But we have plenty of stuff that deals with Ukraine, especially when it comes to Russia, that we have going on internationally. And the first thing that we have here is actually just over here across the border of Moldova, where there's going to be no more Russian propaganda, because Moldova has officially banned all Russian media broadcasting within its borders. So you will not be getting your local dose of RT or Rio Novistia or any of that inside of Moldova. You're not going to get it, because they can't broadcast there anymore. So pretty big news for that. Belarus is going to protect Ukraine from Poland. Oh, God. So Belarus has stated that it wishes to protect Ukraine from Poland. And I've heard this from multiple places, including Russian state media, and I was just like, oh, man, you got to be kidding me. And currently, Belarus is mobilizing mechanized forces on the western border of Belarus and Ukraine, right over here by Poland. So what does this indicate? Well, I doubt Belarus would make any kind of significant gains considering the Russians are having a hard time. Belarus would have a terrible time. And they could be prepping to conduct an incursion, but honestly, it sounds like it's probably just a bunch of saber rattling from Lukashenko. Granted, Belarus is essentially just Russia by extension. Then Lukashenko is really nothing more than a propped up dictator on the Russians' part. But Belarus doesn't have Belarus doesn't have a military. And if they do, what military they do have is focused on making sure their own people don't revolt against them. I mean, look at what happened at the Olympics. She got asylum at the Olympics, and they tried to take her away in custody at the Olympics, and they're like, no. The rest of the world was like, no, we're not. And then, yeah. Belarus is not a very good country to live in. And here's coming from War Monitor, too. And like I said, I found this on a bunch of different Russian media. You're talking about Lucas, because it's Russian media, so they're going to prop up whatever Belarus is saying it's going to do, especially if it has to deal with the West and Ukraine and whatever else. Jump over here to Moscow, and there's a couple of different very frustrating stories that I got to read. First thing is, there's a new Russian cola. So this is only days after Coca-Cola decided they were going to leave Russia permanently. Coca-Cola is probably the largest, or if not one of the largest at least, producers of soda in the world. And this is to kind of quell Russian consumer fears, but there you go. There's your new Russian cola. Yes. I think that's 0% alcohol. Very un-Russian of you, Russia. So don't wait to be conscripted if you're Russian, though. Die a hero. So the images of graduates who have been killed in Ukraine are being posted at schools to encourage military enlistment. Because why die a conscript when you can die a hero in the eyes of Mother Russia? And I kid you not, this is from secondary schools in Russia. Yes. Let's get the children in on it. Also, that's the Soviet hammer and sickle, mind you. Very good. Very good. That's all from the Belgorod Oblast, by the way. You know, there's nothing more damning than using children as propaganda. Really. Seriously. It's a difference between recruiting in a high school or something. And talking to seniors or whoever and they're getting ready to graduate and, hey, what do you want to do? Well, actually, I want to join the Marine Corps or whatever, like I did, right? That's fine. Post it on billboards. Do what every other country. Don't use children for propaganda. Stop doing... You know who else does this? North Korea. North Korea does this. That's the other country that does this exact same thing. Is North Korea. Probably the worst dictatorship in history, whose entire ideology is to kill any American that they could possibly come across. It's all they talk about. Russia is slowly becoming a new North Korea. And Latvia is apparently full of Nazis too. So the FSB released a bunch of documents about a bunch of Latvians who assisted the Gestapo during World War II. And RIA News, RIA Nostrivia, actually equates this to the removal of all Soviet monuments in Latvia, which Latvia just announced but a couple days ago. And so, there were conspirators in France. There are conspirators everywhere. It's not like there wasn't anybody that didn't conspire with the Germans. Come on. There were conspirators in Russia. Not a whole lot, because the Germans basically killed them all, but there were conspirators in Russia. And Stalin promptly had them all executed, or had them sent to Siberia, never to be seen again, at one of the gulags. And that's what we see here. So, this is from RIA. The FSC published documents on atrocities of Latvian punishers during the Second World War. So, massive shoot and kill of innocent Jews. Latvian punishers during the Great Patriotic War willingly helped the Nazis to massively shoot and kill innocent Jews and soul sponges from among peaceful citizens, not only of the USSR, but other countries, including France, Poland, Germany, Austria, Romania, and evidence of archival documents of the FSB. There's your archival documents of the FSB. A reminder of Nazi collaborators unleashed in countries in Eastern Europe, the campaign to demolish monuments of Soviet soldiers liberators confirmed the sad fact: the Nazi ideology is alive and its carriers are eager for revenge. They're talking about how during the Great Patriotic War, they saved entire peoples from the destruction of Hitler's Germany and its allies, as well as rabid Russophobia, a form of Nazism declared the mainstream of anti-Russian policy, the FSB stated. Holy crap. One of the countries actively reviving Nazism over the past 3 decades has become Latvia, whose leadership honors the veterans of the Latvian SS Legion and other criminal armed formation collaborators who hold their parades annually. What? Okay. Listen. It's okay to have a difference in opinion. Okay, politically, it's okay to have a difference of opinion, right? It's okay to have a difference in thought. Being intellectual about that difference and backing things up with fact, right, is an important thing to any intellectual discussion that you're ever going to have. You want to back these things up with facts, whether it's historical facts or facts you're seeing from data or whatever you're saying. What you don't do is you don't just disagree with whoever you're saying and call them stupid, right? Because that just does not make you look good when you just do that. The same thing applies to calling everyone you don't like a fascist. The same thing applies to not calling everyone you don't agree with a Nazi. Because in fact, do you know what happened in the United States? Because the Reds were saying they were going to take over everything, there was literally a period of time where people would slander in their campaigns by calling someone a communist, and it would tank their opponents. It would tank their opponents' political ratings by just the thought that they might be a communist sympathizer. That's a thing that happened. Go look it out. The 50s and 60s were a wild time when it came to the Soviet Union and the United States relations. And you can't just call what you don't like a Nazi. Because what did you do? Think about it. Under the Soviet Union, what happened? Ukraine starved to death. Millions of people were purged and executed. Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people were sent to Siberian labor work camps where they were essentially executed by labor and exhaustion. They just killed them off there, never to be seen again. Thousands of people went missing. Thousands of people starved to death. The Chernobyl accident happened. Your economy wrecked. Why? The fact that Latvia still had Soviet stuff, Soviet monuments in their nation, to up until this point in 2022, blows my mind. Because if I was anyone in Latvia at the collapse of the Soviet Union, I would have been tearing down Soviet Union monuments like Saddam Hussein's statue when we rolled into Baghdad. It's not Nazism. It's also not the Great Patriotic War, Russia. I hate to break it to you. That was only you. That was only you. And we've also seen Russia state they teach the wrong thing. They're erasing history. It's not the Great Patriotic War. They're calling it World War II. Yeah, it was a world war. You were one of the major allied powers, Russia. It's not a Great Patriotic War, maybe for the Soviet Union, but not for Ukraine or Lithuania or Latvia or Estonia, because, everybody in Europe was involved. Most of Africa was involved. The Middle East was involved. All of the Pacific. The largest ocean in the world was involved. The only people not involved in World War II was essentially South America. And that's it. That's it. That's the only continent. Not everyone's a Nazi. Not everyone is there are neo-Nazis in every country. In fact, there's a ton of neo-Nazis inside of Russia. There's a ton of them. It's just we don't talk about them. Because to talk about them gives credibility to them, and that's the last thing they need. But there's no fascism going on. Democracy is not fascism. They're two hugely different things. So to move on from that, there's no mercy for POWs. So there is absolutely no mercy for POWs, especially when it comes to those that surrendered in Mariupol. So, of course, this is coming from TASS, which is another Russian state-owned news media agency. And commanders of Ukraine's Azov battalion have been sent to the Lefortovo detention center in Moscow. So, Mariupol surrendered. The Azovstal surrendered because they were going to fight to the death, mind you. Because all of the civilians have been evacuated. They were just going to fight to the death. They already knew they were going to be killed. And so, supposedly, they got the surrender by Ukraine and Russia coming to a semi-agreement that these guys would be prisoner exchanged. Yeah, that hasn't happened. In fact, it looks like they're going to end up facing the exact same fate that Aiden Aslan and everyone else who surrendered at Mariupol have already had happen to them, where they've received the death sentence. But this is Russia's victory. This is Russia's victory. This is their only victory. Kherson, it's the only major city they've taken. They've taken Mariupol now. So they have 2 cities that they have taken. But, yeah, how about a prisoner swap? Yeah, that's not happening. I hate to break it to you, but I don't think that's going to happen. Because the one thing that Russia keeps using, like I was just saying a few minutes ago during my rant, is the fact that they're Nazis. The Azov Battalion, or a right-wing battalion that was or now a right-wing regiment that was formed during 2014 during all of the Maidan Revolution, everything else that was going on in the Donbass. Okay, extremely right-wing. Several of their members were neo-Nazis. They recruited a bunch of people. That ended up getting cracked down upon. Those people got phased out to an extent. Are there still neo-Nazis? Yes. Yes. It's one battalion in a country, in one part, from the Donbass, mind you, the Russian-speaking part of Ukraine. But this is Russia's victory. This is what they went in there for. They want to defeat Nazism inside of Ukraine. They want to overthrow the Nazi, powers that are the Kiev regime, as they call them, and the Azov Battalion. Well, they have the Azov Battalion from Mariupol here. They have the Nazis that they were going after, that they pledged so much about and talked so much about during the battle and the opening part of the war. There's not going to be a prisoner exchange. They're just going to kill them all because they're going to say that they're all Nazis. Do I know that for a fact? No. But look at what happened to Aiden Aslan. Look at what happened to Penner. Look at what happened to the guy that was from Morocco. And all that's in the DPR, let alone Russia. And we know that Russia's going to do the same thing because the LNR, DPR, DNR, Kherson Oblast, right? They're all occupied. They're all puppets. It's just Russia by extension. It's Russia but extra steps. Same thing with Belarus. It's just Russia but extra steps. At least Kazakhstan's starting to back away from that. And here's another bit of misinformation for you guys. 50 generals and officers killed in action. Oh, man, I can't believe I'm reporting on this. So, this is RT, another Russian state-owned media. Okay? And they said, and this is a statement that RT is quoting from the Ministry of Defense, that more than 50 generals and officers of the Ukrainian armed forces were killed. And according to Moscow's defense ministry, with caliber cruise missiles, and they did it near Dnipro, reportedly, right? And they destroyed 10 M777s, howitzers, and 20 armored vehicles delivered by the West. So what Russia is essentially claiming here, by the way, is that they managed to kill the entirety of the Ukrainian chain of command in a single swift strike. This is state-owned news media, by the way. Like, this had to be approved by someone in the government. 50 generals and officers. I don't even think Ukraine has that many generals to kill off. Like, seriously, like, I don't think they have that many. I tried looking it up. I couldn't find the numbers. If someone could tell me the number of generals and high-ranking officers that Ukraine has, in general, like, even if it's pre-war numbers, I would love to know, because I know they probably bolstered that since. I'll probably estimate it probably about a 30% bolster since. But like, that is the complete military chain of command of Ukraine wiped out in a single go. That did not happen. Like, that, there is no way that happened. There is just no reasonable way that could have possibly happened. Like, that means that they all gathered together in a single building, essentially, and there was, like, they were having, like, the Ukrainian army ball or something in the middle of this war, and they fired a caliber cruise missile, and it killed everyone inside. Like, that did not, there's no way. There's no way. Also, we would probably have heard about it over here, because even if Ukraine didn't admit it, like, as a nation, like, somebody would hear about the fact that everyone in their chain of command just got wiped off the face of the earth. Like, that would have been a thing. So, if you're wondering if this happened, no. Were there probably cruise missile strikes, caliber cruise missile strikes? Yes. I can 100% see that. Is it possible that some high-level Ukrainian officials were killed in those strikes? Yes, it's a war. I can understand that. Russia's lost what, like 11 generals now, which is the most killed since like World War II. But it's misinformation. There's no way you're going to kill that many. Like I said, you'd have to literally get them all in a single building and kill them all at the same time. They were learning about M777s, obviously. So, yeah, they're learning to shoot the M777s. That at least we know. But once again, the M777s are also doing shoot and scoots to avoid this very same thing. And, 10 is just over it's about 2.5 batteries, because a battery is about 4 guns when it comes to an M777 artillery line. I don't know what the makeup is for the Ukrainian forces. They might have it down to 3 guns, but just because they want to be able to spread out their forces a little bit more and have more support in different areas and more flexibility, so they could change that. But in the U.S., it's a 4-gun battery, and I just don't see. I mean, I can see the artillery pieces getting destroyed. Once again, like, Russia has that advantage, right? They can fire 10 times as many artillery guns and put 10 times as much ordnance as Ukraine can. And Ukraine's shooting 4,000 to 6,000 rounds a day just out of its 155s. So, but it's the 50s generals and officers that who in the Ministry of Defense said, yeah, that seems right, and like handed the paper off? Yeah. So that's... yeah. Anyway, we're going to jump over here into Berlin. And there's going to apparently be a faster EU process. So, or at least proposed at this point. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, has proposed to simplify the rules for joining the EU. The German Chancellor said that in the near future, it will become impossible to decide everything unanimously. Now, in order for a new country to join the European Union, all 27 member countries of the Union must vote for it. But Scholz questioned the principle of unanimity. So, basically what he's saying is, we all have different thoughts and opinions on what's going on, and we all have our own personal political gains for most of this. So why do we need to be unanimous in this to accept another country? We should do it by the majority. And so that's what he is proposing. We're gonna skip over Istanbul, and we're gonna jump right down here into Syria, where we have a couple of different things going on. So the first thing we have is here near Afrin, where there's more intra-fighting near Afrin. HTS-backed Arar al-Sham gang and the Jabhat al-Shamia, whose allies are the Syrian National Army, are fighting near Afrin right now. So the Islamic Council issued a statement demanding for the HTS to withdraw their forces from Syrian National Army territory, but the party is still continuing in that endeavor. So take a look.
صوت بابي والله رفع تليفوني هيك لا
Yeah, so not my ideal day. And there's the statement from the Islamic Council there. But yeah, there is groups currently fighting there. But the HTS is trying to come in and support. And Syrians actually took to a motor rally in the city of Azaz, demanding that HTS be prevented from entering the territory of Aleppo. And the Syrians on the road of the city of Azaz actually were shouting, "Fall to the Julani," who are the HTS, Ra Asham, and the Islamic State. So they basically see these guys in the same light as Daesh, who is what they call the Islamic State in this area.
قولوا باي للكاميرا قولوا باي للكاميرا.
Also, there's like no traffic laws in these countries. I was actually just talking about this with one of our researchers, but the best way I can describe the Middle East is like a super dumbed down generalization of an American. Is think of the Wild West, but everyone has a everyone has a car, a cell phone, a gun, and a rocket, and that's basically Iraq, Syria, Yemen, like. that's pretty much it. Like, it's just the American West, but everyone speaks in a weird tongue, and everyone has a gun, a cell phone, a car, and some rockets that are probably in pipes fitted and welded onto the back of their truck, which is probably a 2000 or like a 1995 Toyota Hilux that's white, plain white, with a red stripe going down the side of it. Or it's a Road Ranger.
يسقط الجولاني يسقط احرار الشمس واقف يسقط الجولاني الداعشي يسقط الجولاني يسقط الجولاني الداعشي يسقط الجولاني الداعشي يسقط الدوائر يسقط احرار الشمس واقف.
You can hear him say Dashi. Down here, the intra-fighting has stopped because Turkish troops decided to show up and basically put both of their militias in a corner. So there was hostilities between the HTS, Arar Asham, and Jabhat al-Shamia, and the SNA, and it ceased because of intervention of the Turkish armed forces. They intervened in the situation and then forced the warring parties all to basically go home. They just were like, yeah, guys, go home. Stop killing each other. Because most of these groups are pro-Turkish forces. So the Arar Asham and Jabhat Hashemiya is pro-Turkish militias that were fighting each other. And basically Turkey showed up and was like, stop killing each other. Like, you're supposed to be on the same side. Everyone go home and go, go eat some good food. Calm down. So that's pretty much what happens. And the HTS went back to Idlib, which is in their area of control right now. Basically, a father and a 2-year-old daughter, as well as militants on both sides, and the death of some civilians occurred during this. '95 Toyota Hilux with a red stripe. So they're all just going home. Well, at least Turkey did one good thing. Jump down here into Baghdad. We're going to hit on this topic here real quick. So yesterday we talked about how Iraq has a serious drug problem. Now we've escalated that into all caps. They have a serious drug problem. A resident of the Nakhvan district of southeast Baghdad detonated 2 grenades in his own home during a dispute over drug use, killing 4 of his own family members. What? You know, like everyone talks about like the United States having drug problems, but no one's detonating grenades in their own home against their family. Like, you know what I mean? Like no one's like, oh yeah, mom and dad will show you, and pulling the pin on 2 grenades and going Allah Akbar. Like, no one's doing that in the U.S. But apparently, it is a serious problem here in Baghdad. And all jokes aside, not to be offensive or anything, but all jokes aside, like, that's a serious problem. When people are having that major of a dispute, like, I've seen some pretty horrendous things. I've even seen murders committed, you know, even heard and seen of murders committed over drugs. But, I mean, killing 4 of your own family with 2 hand grenades, first of all, where'd you get the hand grenades? And secondly, I mean, that's pretty extreme. You jump over here to Afghanistan, and the Islamic State blew up another truck in Kabul. This is another Taliban vehicle within the 15th quarter of the Kabul earlier this evening, killing 4 people and injuring several others, including a security officer. So, a low-level Taliban commander. Now, the Islamic State is still very active, and despite maybe having some minor similarities between them and the Afghan Taliban and other groups in the region, that doesn't mean they're friends. In fact, even while the U.S. coalition was still in Afghanistan, the Islamic State and the Taliban actually fought each other as well. And we jump over here into India, and like I was talking about before we jumped into the news, there's a lot of environmental issues currently ongoing throughout the world, and it's causing a lot of natural disasters that we've seen recently. The latest one is actually here in India, where the flooding in the northeastern part of the country has killed 63 people. Total, about 3.1 million have been affected by the massive monsoon rains that's causing this flooding. And about 10 people, including 3 children, at this point in time are reported missing. So if anyone does have any humanitarian missions that we could, add to our list that's currently ongoing down below for here, it would be greatly appreciated. We'd love to get those gone through and get the vetting process started immediately on these, and really start getting them put through the process, because, once again, another pretty major disaster here in India. So, pretty terrible situation currently ongoing there in India as a result of the massive monsoons. And over here in China, a tornado actually touched down there in China near Foshan. It overturned cars, tore the roofs off of houses, hit power lines, and caused power outages, and started a fire. However, there were no casualties reported at this point in time. Why would you get that close to a tornado?
Yo.
Okay. So, tips from a Midwesterner. Don't stand next to your window and don't stand outside videotaping this thing. Okay? I do not encourage this behavior whatsoever. Okay? Tornadoes are cool. I'm fascinated by them. Actually, growing up, I actually wanted to be a storm chaser because I always thought they were cool, and I'm still in love with the movie Twister. But that being put aside, right? Like, tornadoes are dangerous. They kill people every single year. Every single year in the U.S. We have an entire thing in the U.S. called Tornado Alley. Like, this is not a good time. Okay? In fact, it's that time of year right now where tornadoes are likely. So, get to the lowest, central part of your house, preferably a basement or a storm shelter if you have one. Don't stay on the 12th floor of your apartment building. And don't stay next to a window. And don't stand next to the damn thing and videotape with your cell phone because these things get called a finger of God for a reason. And usually when it's called a finger of God, it's like that connotation usually isn't a good thing. So people die every single year. And unfortunately, while I may find tornadoes absolutely fascinating, I'm not going to stand out there and videotape one because, I have this thing called self-preservation and common sense. And common sense says if this thing's capable of killing me, I probably should get somewhere where I'm going to be safe. So do not stand out and videotape a tornado, no matter how cool no matter how much you want to see one or how cool you think it is. Do not put yourself in danger. Do basic safety, common sense things and keep yourself alive and healthy for a long and prosperous life. And that is my tips from a Midwesterner. Up here in Japan, a Japanese airline has ditched the Z insignia. So Zapair Tokyo, which is a Japanese airline there, has ditched their iconic Z from fear of branding association with Russia. And they have and all of their aircraft is marked with the Z on the tail fin of their aircraft, so they are going to be removing that. And jump down here into Australia, the land of everything that will kill you. And Australia is supplying M113s to Ukraine. They have pledged 14. The first batch of 4 is currently on their way. Basically, the M113 is a little bit of an older armor personnel carrier. It's a tracked armor personnel carrier. Has a little bit of a thin bottom. It was used during the United States during Vietnam. But it's still poignant. It's still very good. And the first batch of vehicles has been each refitted and tested, including their armament, prior to getting immediately loaded onto aircraft. And that's what we're seeing here. And these are upgraded M113s. But we can take a look here. They have really outdone themselves on these things. So that's a top view of the vehicles there. And the M113 originally just has like a basic hatch opening. They have put actual turrets onto these at this point. They have extra spacing for ammunition and supplies. Like these are definitely a modernized version of the M113. Their main armament is a 50 caliber machine gun. Specifically speaking, it is an M2 Browning machine gun, an M2 HB heavy barrel, which is the same. Basically, hasn't changed since World War II. It really hasn't, and that's what they're fitting here in the turret. Now, larger vehicles are usually going to mount something like a 20 millimeter cannon on top of 20 millimeter or 25 millimeter, like a Bushmaster or something. These vehicles weren't meant for that. They're not like the Bradley where they were built to include that. These were really built only to include things like your average 50 caliber machine gun, the M60 originally. There have been other variants, but you can see, and I think there's actually a better photo of this. They're marking them too. so that way you can see that they are, you know, going to Ukraine. So from Australia, of course, Australia had to add the kangaroo. Oh, Australia, you have the weirdest animals on the planet, I swear. But that's currently what's happening here out of Australia. When you go over here into Mali, where the Wagner have arrived in Manaka. Manaka was recently just transferred over from the French to the Mali military, which is right here. This is the former French post. And the Wagner group has arrived. So the Russian Wagner group, which is a Russian mercenary organization, it's basically an extension of their armed forces that gives them plausible deniability, quote unquote, is currently in Monaco, where they're currently fighting against the Islamic State within the region. Despite the fact that the military junta have canceled all official military and security contracts, especially with Western countries, the Russian forces seem to still be in the area. You have a picture of them there. It is the Wagner. And we jump over here actually into the United States, where 30 different coal cars have derailed near Lawrence, Kansas. So these are 30 coal wagons. Emergency crews are on site. But pretty extensive. Also, I would like to just point out to a comment that just came through the chat. Human Beings by Van Halen is an amazing song, first of all. And once again, I love the movie Twister. I just watched Twister the other day. Okay? Just because I don't encourage the activity of being stupid when it comes to severe weather doesn't mean I don't enjoy these. I don't enjoy a good, I don't enjoy some severe weather and in storm chasing and stuff. I have never actually gone storm chasing, so. But we're never going to be doing news. We're never going to be doing the weather on this channel, just the environment. So, all right, now something from yesterday, because I failed to add this because there was a new section that we added on to where we collect all this information for the stream from our researchers, and a new section was added. And even I got told about it, but I did forget. So this was from yesterday. And a new study shows that Jupiter is full of remains of baby planets, essentially. So Jupiter is a gas giant, for those that don't know. There's essentially nothing other than gas and gravity of that gas, that extremely heavy, thick atmosphere holding it together. And they basically, come from the first time they found a chemistry beneath the planet's cloudy atmosphere that suggests that it's basically made up of baby planets. Jupiter's core probably doesn't have a lot of tectonic activity in it, but they show that there is an equivalent of between 11 and 30 Earth masses of heavy elements within Jupiter, which is about 3 to 9% of Jupiter's overall mass. So, pretty important thing there. So this kind of could change the origin story regarding the entire formation of the solar system there, because that would mean that there are other planets. So there's Jupiter in all of its glory. There's the probe. And if you would like, and we found this on Live Science. So if you guys want to go check that out, or you can check out the official study at aanda.org. And now we're actually going to jump back over into Baghdad for some absolute adorableness. So this right here is an albino otter, and it's the first of its kind. It's the rarest case in the world and the first of its kind in Iraq. But this is an albino otter that was found near the Iskhaki in Shamal, Baghdad. And it is absolutely adorable. Let's take a look.
اخلاقيه. حاليا انا هنا بمنطقه يعني تكاد انه تكون خامه جدا البيئه العراقيه، هي في منطقه يعني منطقه الميزوبوتاميا الشرق ديزرت. هاي المنطقه هي في سنترال العراق، في وسط العراق، وبها هذا الصفه المظهريه هي الالباينو يوريجيان اوتر، يعني اتس فيري راير مورفولوجي. هاي موجوده في مناطق متفرقه جدا من العالم، وهاي هي التسجيل الاول لهذه الصفه بالشرق الاوسط. هذا الحيوان شوف عينه، كل البير بارتس مالته يعني الاجزاء الرخوه لونها وردي، العين مالته لونها يكون احمر لان هاي اصطفرة الالباينو اهم صفاتها، وما يشوف، الرؤيه مالته جدا ضعيفه، والاظافر مالته لونها ابيض، بما معنى انه هاي الصبغه هي فاقده لصبغه الميلانين السوداء. فهذا من اندر الطفرات، من اهم الاكتشافات للبيئه العراقيه، فيجب المحافظه عليه.
حاليا احنا قرب ناحية الإسحاقي مع كلب الماء النادر الألباينو اللي هو كلب الماء الأوراسي أو يوريجيان أوتر، الطفرة الألباينو. طبعا أستاذ نصر، وين أستاذ نصر؟ أستاذ نصر هو اللي لقى هذه الطفرة، النوع النادر من الأوتر أو كلب الماء، وبمساعدة
Come on, it's adorable. I love animals. But now we jump up here into Istanbul, which you skipped over, and this is because Bekar is actually developing a new type of drone. So it's a Turkish defense company. It's actually the one that developed the Bayraktar, and this is a new unmanned fighter jet, basically, called the Bayraktar Kizilelma. This is going to have a maximum takeoff weight of 6,000 kilograms, with 1,500 kilograms is going to be available for the payload itself. So whatever ordnance it's going to be carrying, it'll be capable of takeoff and landing on a landing dock, and will have an operational altitude of 35,000 feet or 10,000 meters. It'll be capable of near supersonic speeds, with the first test flight being planned for early next year. Basically, it's the F-35 without a cockpit. Pretty cool, though. I mean, that's really where it looks like warfare is headed. And we've pondered this for a long time. You can see the Bayraktar in the background, by the way. But the thing is that war is costly in human life, and human beings are a valuable, extremely valuable resource for your country. So it's not really worth wasting it. And as technology continues to improve, much like with many other things, and I highly encourage you to read up on this, automation is going to take over a lot of different things. And really, the cutting edge of that automation and what automated things can do is really being led by militaries. Drones drones and EOD robots, and emergency recovery robots, and submersible. I mean, the Titanic was found because they were using underwater submersibles to find a Russian submarine. Like, that's where technology and discovery is really led. And technology is developed. You have GPS because of the military. You have a cell phone because of the military. You have a computer because of the military. You have anything you're talking about. The microphone I'm using to talk to you during this stream. My computer. Everything is developed because it had a defense purpose. The government saw that it could be used in some way, shape, or form. And as things later leave the government's aura of controllability, or something better comes along, that really, diffuses out into the public space. Especially after veterans who use this stuff, go, wow, that's really cool. Like the Switchblade drones. Where did you see that? Someone in the DoD was probably, or DARPA was sitting there thinking, man, it'd really be cool if the Hunter Killer drone from Call of Duty was real. And then they made a Hunter Killer drone from Call of Duty. And same thing with fighter jets. I mean, autonomous fighter jets. Why lose your pilots? That takes so long to train. It takes years sometimes to train pilots, depending on the aircraft you're training them on. And Like the F-35 helmet alone, the helmet alone, because of the HUD setup in it, is like $35,000 and has to be custom made to each individual pilot. It's a lot of investment, but if you remove the pilot, you remove that investment and you lose the loss of investment if one of them is killed in action. Same thing with tanks. That could be very possible that tanks become at least an autonomous or semi-autonomous system, a drone in the future. So that's kind of where warfare is heading. And this being such a large aircraft and being, looks like it's actually made to be an actual jet fighter. So that is going to be a very big change to how wars fought. And this is a change that's been a long time coming. And I think the war in Ukraine really illustrates that too. Because it's too dangerous, it's becoming too hazardous to human beings and too wasteful to fight a war like this in the modern era. And that is going to cause a lot of shifts in mentality as to how wars in the modern day should be fought. So, really cool though, really cool development. I'm actually going to jump over here to Tomsk, Russia. Believe it or not, we have interesting news coming out of Russia. And it's actually pretty cool. This is the first time a woman in Russia has been entrusted with the management of a nuclear reactor. So Alina Goronova is currently in charge of operating the nuclear reactor near Tomsk, and her responsibilities are to monitoring the parameters of the reactor, starting and stopping the reactor, and other possible commands. She's currently studying in the first year of her master's program, nuclear reactors and power plants, that is taught in English. Prior to obtaining a permit, Alina completed 6 months of training and an internship and passed 9 different exams. So pretty cool. Pretty cool thing. I mean, that's a pretty cool development for women here in Russia. That's for sure. And we jump over here to London, where they actually found a new cancer treatment. They developed a new type of treatment that lights up and it wipes out microscopic cancer cells. So it could enable surgeons to more effectively target and destroy cancer inside of patients. So it's a light activated therapy. It forces cancer cells to glow in the dark, and this helped surgeons to remove more of the tumors compared to with other techniques. So it kills off remaining cells within minutes once the surgery is complete. The first trial was with mice with glioblastoma, and one of the most common and aggressive types of brain cancer, and scans revealed the novel treatment lit up even the tiniest cells of cancer and helped surgeons remove them and wiped out whatever was left over. So this is immunotherapy, and it's led by the Institute of Cancer Research in London, and it also showed the treatment triggered an immune response that could prime the immune system to target cancer cells in the future, suggesting it could prevent glioblastoma from coming back after surgery. So that's a pretty big deal. If you get it, now there's an easier way to find it, remove it, kill it, and then possibly you won't ever get it again. There won't be any remission of the cancer. And so that is a big development when it comes to cancer research. And if that can be applied to, say, other types of cancer, then that's a game changer for people all over the world. I mean, cancer, it really surprises me that we haven't found a cure for cancer, and I know there's a lot of debate about that, but I'm not going to get into the debate. It's just, I think a lot more should be put towards research for illnesses, diseases, cancer research, autism, Alzheimer's, dementia, to try and actually understand these things. They really don't get these big of a budget as they probably should, and that's globally. So I really hope we see further developments with that, and I hope we start pouring more and more research into that. I'd rather see us cure cancer than kill each other, honestly, and I think everyone can agree with that. But in the meantime, what we can do is we can help people all over the world, because that is the end of the news. And you guys have been able to make this an awesome community. You've supported us, but more importantly, you're supporting the organizations in the description. So please continue to do so. go down in the description, check out the different organizations. If you have any others, including for places like India, but if you have more for Ukraine or for Ethiopia, Somalia, if you have some for South Africa, for South America, please let us know. We are constantly looking for more to help out people all over the world. We don't just want to help people in any specific region. So thank you for supporting us in that endeavor. If you can't give a lot to these organizations, give a little. If you can't give anything at all, give us a like and subscribe, and let your friends know about us, because the more people that are here, the more people that can come in and enjoy the way that we do the news here, but also the more people that are here, the more help we can give people globally, the more good we can do throughout the world, and truly give back to the very news that we give to you. So I really appreciate your guys' support. Big thanks to the staff. They put this all together. I literally just lend my voice to this, guys. So make sure to give them a really big round of applause there for that. They do this every single day. So we will not be streaming tomorrow. We do take Mondays off. So please bear that in mind. We will not be streaming tomorrow. And so with that, I hope that you guys have a wonderful Monday. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday as well. I hope that you guys get some rest before you guys either go back to work or school or whatever's happening in your lives. And I hope that you, your family, and your friends all remain safe. And if not, I really do hope that you guys find that safety and security in the near future. There's a ton of bad stuff going on out in the world, and I really don't want any of my viewers to have to be going through it. But if you are, I do hope that your life does turn around for the better. And with that, I appreciate you guys being here with us, guys. My name is Paul from the New News, and I hope to see you guys back here at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central on Tuesday. Have a wonderful night and have a wonderful early part of your week. Bye now.